Hello, welcome to Teach Me Maths. My name's Jonathan Hicks. Today we're looking at place value. Now, place value is a very important topic in maths. You need it when you're adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. For decimals in particular, you really need to know your place value. Place value is essentially the columns that numbers fall into. So you've got your units, your tens, your hundreds. Now, most people tend to be okay with those first few columns, but when it comes to the other side of the decimal point, the tenths and hundredths and things get a little bit more hazy there. So I'd like to show you a method today for how you can remember all of those columns. So let's just take a nice big number. We'll have 7, 5, 4, 8, 2, 6. That's going to be my decimal point. And we'll have a 1, 4, 9. That'll do. So the first column you've got to identify is the units column, and it's always the first one on the left of the decimal point. So I'll stick a big U there for units. If you've just got 6, that's just the number 6. It's 6 units, that's all there is. The next column along is your tens, capital T for tens. That's not a 2, it's 2 tens, so this is a 20. Yep, it makes 26. The next column along is the hundreds column. Again, this is not an 8, it's 800. 8 hundreds, 2 tens, 6 units makes 826. The next column along is the thousands column. So I've already used the T there, so we'll do a TH for the thousands. So if you're ever unsure about quite what column you're in, if you just replace the digit with a 1 and fill out the rest of them with zeros until you get to the decimal point, whatever number you've got, that's the column you're in. That's 1,000, that means this is the thousands column. So again, this is not 4, it's 4,000. 4,826. The next column along is the 10,000s column. So we'll do a T with a TH. And then finally you've got the 100,000s column at the end there. Now they just come in threes. So you get a certain kind of column and then the appropriate tens and hundreds that go with it. So you get your units, tens and hundreds, then you get your thousands, and the tens and hundreds that go with the thousands, the 10,000s and the 100,000s. The next column would be the millions column, and then you get the 10 millions and the 100 millions. Yeah? So it's units, tens and hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millions, 100 millions, billions, 10 billions, 100 billions. It just keeps going. It always follows that pattern of 3. Now, once you know those, the tricky thing is working out the ones on the other side. But what I use for this is something my mum once told me a long time ago. She said, Jonathan, if you ever find yourself at a fancy dinner, you know, you get like a sea of knives and forks on either side of the plate, and you're like, oh, I don't know which pair I'm supposed to use. You've got the prawn cocktail dish, the soup dish, the main course, the dessert, the cheese and biscuits. It's like, wow, all this cutlery, what am I doing? She said, just start at the outside and pair your way in. So you take the outside knife and fork, you use those for your prawn cocktail, and then you take your next ones for the next dish, and you just keep working along like that. And it's exactly the same thing here. Your dinner plate, in this case, is the units column. That's the one that sits in the middle of everything. Don't worry about the decimal point. The units sits in the middle. They then pair on either side of the dinner plate, the units column in this case. Everything on this side is exactly the same as these ones, except they have a little TH in. So if this is the tens column, which would be spelt like that, then this will be the tenths column. The spelling is exactly the same, you just stick a little TH in before the S at the end. So it's tenths. Tens on this side, but on the right of the decimal point, it's tenths. So I could do that like that. So those two go together. The next pair that go together are those two. So this is the hundreds column. Just write that one out. Which means this must be exactly the same column, but with a TH in before the S at the end. Again, the spelling is no different. It's hundred with a TH before the S at the end. Hundreds and hundredths. little bit tricky to say, that one. So the next column here is going to be a thousands column, which means this one, which pairs with that one, is going to be the, oh, let me just write that one in, that's the hundredths. This one's going to be the thousandths column. And again, the spelling, exactly the same, 1,000, but stick a TH in before the S at the end. Now, the important thing with this topic is when you're adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, whatever it is you do, you must make sure you're lining up the columns correctly. So if you're adding up two numbers, let's imagine you've got 184 plus 76, you need to make sure that the units columns sit on top of each other. This is the units column for the 184, the 6 is the units for the 76. The 8 is the tens for 184, the 7 is the tens for 76. 1 is the hundreds, there are no hundreds on the 76. As long as you line up the columns properly so that you've got your units and then your tens and then your hundreds, it'll all work out fine. If you get any one of those columns wrong though, you're going to get the answer wrong. So you've got to be careful. But this is very important, as I say, whether you're adding, subtracting, whatever it is, and particularly with decimal numbers, you have to line up the columns correctly. Let me show you very quickly how it would work with decimals. So if you had a number like 0.45 and you were adding that to 6.2, you could line them up that way. So the decimal point will always sit underneath. The units column was there. This is the tenths column, pairs with the tens there. And then this one would be the hundredths column. There's nothing after the 2, which means you've got no hundredths. So you just add them in columns, and as long as you match them up, it'll all work out fine. My name's Jonathan Hicks, and you've been watching Teach Me Maths.